everybody. I see a few people trickling in. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm gonna wait just maybe like a minute, just to allow some people to join us. Um, I see a lot of people coming on. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. Well, we've got about 5 people on right now, and 30-ish people registered. So maybe I'll just give it a little bit more time. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I made a fire outside. It was lovely. 6 people. I might just go ahead and dive in, and as people tune in, the information that they missed, I'll just put in the chat box. So welcome to Bounty and Soul's second webinar. We've deemed this webinar to be called Rooted in Health, which is actually one of our programs that we offer at Bounty and Soul, which we'll dive deeper into later in the webinar. I want to go over some logistical things on how to use the webinar first for attendees. You can see on your screen, there's a Q&A box. Please feel free to post any and all questions there pertaining to this topic. And if you have any questions geared specifically towards one person, just mention that. If you want it just open to the panel, I'll just address the questions that way as well. And if I, for some reason, can't get to your question, I will be following up via email. So feel free to plug anything into that box. And as well, there is a chat box, and you can plug anything into there as well. So just know that those two options are there for you to communicate with us and for us to communicate back with you. So now that the logistical stuff is out of the way, I also want to talk about why we chose tonight to host a webinar. As some people may know, tomorrow is Giving Tuesday, but a lot of people don't know about Giving Tuesday. So what is Giving Tuesday? It's a global movement that started in 2002, basically to bring people together, to unite them through acts of generosity. And whether that be helping your neighbor, giving to a charitable organization, or just spreading the word on something online about something that you read about someone who's doing something generous for others, those are all acts of generosity that this movement wanted to foster. And as Bounty and Soul, we are very excited to be part of Giving Tuesday. And this is a huge way that we're trying to engage with our viewers, because we want to hear from you. Your voice matters, and we want all voices to be heard, which is why we have a great diverse panel tonight of a variety of community members as well as healthcare professionals that will be diving deep into what the intricacies are between food, health, and education. I'll put a little blurb in the chat box as well about Giving Tuesday if you're interested in learning more, and also where to go to give to us and become more involved with Bounty and Soul. So just look out in the chat box for that, and I will post it in just a minute. And we do look like we have about 12 people on right now, which is great. It's about half, a little less than half than what registered. So people will probably still be trickling in. So let's just get started with the introductions. I'll start with myself as host. Hi, I'm Tia Oster. I am contracted worker for Bounty and Soul, and I do development work with them as well as volunteering at the markets. I'll start off with Allie. Allie is the founder, and she's here to share a little bit about herself.
Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here again with you all. I was part of the first webinar and just really excited that we're continuing the series and you will be hearing from us continuing on in several webinars. So just really excited. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm Ali Kasparian. I'm the founder and executive director of the organization. And, you know, mostly my job, I do a lot of different things, but I want to, you know, mostly make sure that everyone has the support and the tools and the resources that they need to carry out our mission and vision every day. So yeah, and I'm deeply connected with the work, and just really grateful to be here.
Thanks, Allie. How about you, Abby?
Hey, I am Abby. I am a registered dietitian at Bounty and Soul, and the program manager. A really big part of my role is kind of weaving together these elements of food, health, education, and community. And I spend a lot of my time creating and developing education tailored for community needs and centering on the food and celebrating food. I'm grateful to be here. I was not on the previous webinar and I'm sad that I missed it, but really happy to be here.
We missed you.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that the people spoke and they wanted another webinar. So I'm happy to host, and I'm happy that you were able to be on this time.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Abby. Valerie?
Hey guys, I'm Valerie Holbert, and like a lot of the folks that were on the last webinar, I didn't get to watch that live, but I went back and watched it. I came to Bounty and Soul as a volunteer. I think Tia, you did too, and some other folks. And since then, I've done a lot of different things. I'm a health coach, a board certified health coach, energy worker, and yoga teacher. I taught the Tuesday class when we were having in-person markets for the last several years, and now Danielle and I share that class. You can watch that on Tuesdays, little shameless plug here, Tuesday mornings at 9:30. And all those are recorded as well. And then as a health coach, we've gone through, gosh, Allie, I'm not sure how many cohorts at this point, but where we provide free of charge to the participants a 12-week one-on-one health coaching program.
Wow.
And I'm drawing a blank how many we've done this time. I think this might be the 5th.
Cohorts?
Yeah.
The 5th? Yeah, no, I think we're up to like 6 or 7.
Yeah. Okay. So it's been, you know, over the last 4 years. So glad to be a part of Bounty and Soul in all these different ways, and glad to be here tonight.
Wow, I didn't realize that it was that extensive of a program. That's amazing. That's amazing. I did not know that. Thanks, Valerie.
Yeah, thanks.
And last but not least, Ben.
Hey everybody, my name is Ben Aiken. I'm a family physician in the community. And it's, I want to say almost been now almost 5 years ago when I first got connected with Bounty and Soul with my initial practice in the Swannanoa Valley as a place that I could send my patients and spent some time at the markets and got connected with Allie, and was as blown away then as I continue to be in terms of the programming and the opportunity this is for members in our community. And over the past, I think now 3+ years, I've had a chance to be on the board and continue to serve in that capacity, which has been a real honor.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. So as you can kind of see, just based on our intros, there's a lot of different walks of life that come to Bounty and Soul, but it's centered around a central value of whole person wellness. And I know that term can get thrown around a lot in this day and age. And so I kind of want to take some time in this webinar to deconstruct that a little bit, because it is integral to the work that we do at Bounty and Soul and why we look at things the way that we do, why we serve fresh local produce at our markets, and the education materials that are provided, as well as the recipes, are centered a lot around plant-based diets, but also looking at your mental health and your physical health, and what does your physical appearance have to do with your health, and all these different factors that really go into what does it mean when someone says to strive to be healthy? And what is our version of that as individuals, as well as a collective, as an organization? So I kind of want to just open that up. I know that's a really loaded question, but when you think of whole person wellness, maybe what are some top priorities or attributes that you focus on? Maybe for yourself, but also when it comes to the work that you do with other people.
Are you
Allie?
unmuting, Allie? Oh. Okay. Yeah, when this question comes up, it really makes me think of a story, and what comes to mind is this health and wellness class that we would teach consistently around the new year on whole person well-being, on health, on dieting. What does it mean to be healthy? And how we start that class is, and feel free for anyone joining here, I can't see you, but we close our eyes, and the question asked is to picture yourself when you're healthy and well, or if you can't picture yourself, like picture someone you look to that you consider to be healthy and well, and what comes up for you. And when they open their eyes and we kind of popcorn around the room, the things that people say are like, I feel loved, I feel like I got a good night's sleep, I have enough food to feed my family, I have energy, I am able to like feel compassion towards myself, like this whole beautiful spectrum, and it's across the board. And I think one important piece is to kind of sift out that we associate a lot of things with weight and health, and to kind of realize that health is this like alive, living entity that we're in a relationship with, and that it's really important, at least for me in my role with education, is to leave space for people to determine what it means for them to feel healthy and to feel well, and to create that opportunity to really like reflect on, when do I feel healthy? When do I feel well? What are those things? Is it when I have friends, or when I have a support network? Is it when I'm, eating enough throughout the day? And I think whole person wellness speaks to a lot of that. A lot of health and well-being has been fragmented. We go to different people for different things, and aren't really, our body as this interconnected being is not always honored, and it's this whole ecosystem. And whole person wellness is one of many words to kind of describe that, and to be able to honor that part, that we are full, whole beings that are complex with a lot of needs, and health can look really different for each person. And I'm excited for when people can determine what that means for themselves. That's my story.
One thing that really stuck out to me almost off the bat was when you said when someone feels loved, like that kind of community connection or one-on-one connection, and how much advocacy goes into determining what makes whole person wellness. It's like you're meeting people where they are and allowing them to really reflect inwards, but also so they can make external choices, instead of someone just kind of putting a choice onto them, and like really having that kind of advocacy, self-advocacy can truly liven someone on a really deep level. And I feel like you hit a lot on that point, and I appreciate that a lot. I want to welcome in someone who just joined in, if she's there. Hi, so happy you were able to join us. What a lovely surprise. Would you like to introduce yourself? Okay, you're on mute real quick. You're on mute. Yeah, you got it.
There we go.
Hey.
Hey, yeah, I'm Vina Rhodes. I'm a mom of 3, live in Asheville, lifestyle medicine physician, and I work in the urgent care. I'm all about nutrition and lifestyle as medicine. So fun to listen in and love Bounty and Soul and everything that y'all are doing for the community.
And you are at urgent care right now, right?
Mhm.
Thank you for tuning in above and beyond. Just to catch you up with where we're at, we were just starting to dive into what whole person wellness means for you as an individual, and also when it comes to the care that you provide others. So Abby just delivered an amazing answer, spoke a lot to advocacy, and being able to having the choice to kind of decide for yourself what healthy looks like and envisioning that kind of lifestyle for yourself before setting out to try to achieve those goals. Did anyone want to add on to what Abby was saying, or have anything extra they wanted to add about whole person wellness? Allie, did I see you inching forward?
Yeah, I was going for the unmute button. Yeah, I think Abby, said it so beautifully. Oftentimes when we think of health, we think of like diet. And it's so funny because I really can't stand that word, because an element of that word is die. And so from the very beginning, I used to call it a live it. Instead of a diet, it's a live it. But a lot of times, we focus on the food aspect of health, and it's really important to understand that it's really not only about food, but it's really about lifestyle. And in that context is like sleep and stress and relationships and social connections and what is what is your spiritual practice. So there's, like Abby explained, it's a intricacy of all of these things that kind of weave together into overall health and well-being. And I remember somebody sharing with me about this person that had done all the right things, like ate plant-based, like drank wheatgrass and did shots of ginger, and did everything right, and came down with heart disease. And as it turned out, when they started to work with this individual and uncover some of what was going on with them emotionally, he was harboring so much grief from a death of his spouse. And so when he was able to work through that grief and unleash that burden that was carrying so heavy in his heart, he healed from his heart disease. So it's kind of looking, not just singling out one thing, but looking at everything in totality together. So I didn't say it as nicely as Abby did, but that's my version of it.
I like that you brought up the effects of emotions, though. And because I feel like everyone can relate to that, whether that be grief or stress. Stress, we all know the damaging effects of stress. I'm sure we have felt that and noticed that in our own bodies. And I think just kind of tuning into that, but having the space and the time to tune into those things, those are luxuries in and of itself. And I think that is another thing that's kind of rising to the surface right now as we see people who are struggling through this pandemic, as we all are to a degree. But and how are we going to deal with stress individually, collectively, on a societal level, and how that plays out on our health, and how other factors, like the things that we've been talking about, exercise, the food you put in your body, the connections you have with people, how secure you're feeling financially, all these things that go into it that really, really affect your overall wellness. And that's one thing I really respect and admire at first off the bat when I first came to Bounty and Soul, was that those categories were addressed. Nothing was kind of just swept under the rug. It was like very very whole, just very, I mean, every piece of the pie was there, and you could kind of dive in as deep as you wanted to in whatever section of the pie maybe you felt like you needed a little extra help. And so that's kind of why I'm glad we're talking about this, just to kind of explain how we all view whole person wellness, and then how we bring that to the table when it comes to, working with Body and Soul. Valerie or Ben. Oh, sorry, Abby.
Oh, am I okay to say something really quickly off of that? I feel
Yeah.
like that speaks really well to, like you saying, like the whole piece of the pie and how we deliver education, which I think there's opportunity to talk more about that. But
Yes.
just to like put it into categories for people that might be unfamiliar with the way that we really prioritize whole person well-being, is making sure with our classes, with our children's programming, with all of our messaging that goes out, that we honor nutrition, we honor cooking, but we also are honoring mental, emotional, spiritual wellness, which could look like a class on seasonal depression or self-compassion, or like breathing techniques or stress reduction. Physical movement, which looks like Valerie teaching a yoga class, or Francisco teaching a Zumba class, or dance, or a chair stretch. And it also looks like environmental well-being and gardening and community connection and story time. So we weave all of those elements in really, really intentionally with our education. That just reminded me of like, that's how it looks with whole person well-being.
Yes. And I do want to really explore the role education plays in all of the things that we're saying, especially when it comes to reaching people who might not have ever heard of that term, and because we were once that person. So yeah, well, I'd love to dive deeper into how education plays out in everyone's role, even outside of Body and Soul, like Ben, with your work, and how education factors into the things that you find yourself addressing on a daily basis within your job.
Yeah, certainly. I think just to speak a little bit to this concept of whole person and how that's different from what I would call kind of the status quo way of thinking, or at least the way most clinicians are trained, is really, there's this tendency to kind of put everything into a box if you can. So really it's, people are almost defined by their disease state, right? So the easy example is you have diabetes, right? So you are a diabetic and you're defined as that. And then we have this incredible wealth of resources that then focus in on that one specific thing and are geared towards it, whether it's a medicine, whether it's a specialty type of doctor, whether it's some type of a procedure, even certain types of support programs that are just geared towards a specific disease. And in contrast, no disease lives in a box. Actually, no human does, right? Like we're all interconnected, and that disease is connected for various different organ systems throughout the body. It's connected to the environment around that person. And all of that is woven together. And so there's inherent complexity in kind of approaching it in that whole or woven together way. And most systems aren't designed to do that because it's challenging. But that interplay is key for all the reasons that Allie and Abby spoke to already, in terms of the way that ultimately people function in the world. And then increasingly there is this recognition that, oh, by the way, like if we do all those lifestyle things, and we acknowledge all of those social determinants and the things that really influence kind of root cause of somebody's health, and we do a good job at trying to improve those or meeting people where they are in terms of wanting to engage and improve those things, then we can reverse disease states. And that's really never something I learned about in medical school. It was kind of like, hey, you got diagnosed with this, and then you started down the path of medicines and plan to treat for the remainder of somebody's existence. So it's a real mindset shift that I think is quite powerful. And certainly in regards to your question, Tia, education is key. So I think inherently at the end of the day, I've never met someone who at the core really actually didn't want to be healthy or healthier. But so much of the system is really kind of structured in a way, whether it's the educational influences, the cultural influences, the system level influences of what's paid for and all those things, is really leaves folks in a position where in some ways they feel relatively helpless. And so helping to educate them about kind of all of this stuff that we're talking about is certainly essential and core in terms of connecting in with that root desire that so many of us have to be healthy, and then really accessing those tools that are there and available to be able to do that.
I really like how you expanded on how not only is it about educating, the people that come to you for your services, but also like a kind of a rewiring of the education that even you yourself received. You said I never learned that in medical school, and I'm curious if like there's been if you see a shift in the kind of just like the education and the ways that these larger healthcare systems are starting to view health as more interconnected and implementing and kind of adding to that toolbox. I kind of, that's kind of what I felt like you were speaking to. And so it's like, it's a kind of an education for all involved, not just those who might not be familiar with terms that we're immersed in every day or, something like that. It's just like a real rewiring almost.
Absolutely. I've heard other physicians start to go through training in this area. A lot of people call lifestyle medicine. There's some other terms for it, but that certainly captures a fair bit. Who frankly feel like they've been wronged. They kind of say like, I cannot believe this is the first time I've heard this. Like, how could I have practiced for this long or gone through all this schooling years and years and years and nobody really talked to me about this? So there's one kind of a groundswell of folks that are really trying to take good care of their patients that are starting to be drawn to this. I do think we're seeing some shifts at a system level, but I think those shifts are quite slow. And a lot of that is because of how healthcare is paid for. So even though I think we probably see a fair number of marketing flyers and other things that speak to kind of this being an aspect of kind of the bigger system, I have yet to see any system do what Bounty and Soul is doing as well as it is doing it. And it's doing it for folks that are exceedingly underserved. And so those two things combined make it even more powerful. So I think that Bounty and Soul, from my perspective, is really an early adopter and on the leading edge in terms of that shift and that approach on education. From my perspective, most health systems would actually be transformational if they followed that lead.
Thank you. Valerie, I was kind of thinking of you too in that conversation, because I know you come from a more alternative healthcare education, and I'm interested to see what your experience is like in terms of your education and the education that you give to people who seek your services.
Yeah. Well, everyone's so far has brought up some really great points. So some of it's echoing what's been touched on, but Abby, I really loved what you started with that piece of, meeting people where they are with curiosity, right? Because I think for a lot of people, and I find this both in yoga classes and as a health coach, like oftentimes people have never had that opportunity to like be still within themselves, to breathe, to experience what it feels like to have a regulated nervous system, and to even ask those kind of questions like, what does health look like to me? Or to hear from their doctor, this is reversible. Like this is, that piece, that curiosity and that hope is huge. And, echoing what Ali said, I've said to a lot of folks too, that, you can eat all the kale in the world or whatever the superfood, of the day is, and those things are super important. But, if you don't have a regulated nervous system where you can rest and actually digest your food and absorb those nutrients, if you're in toxic relationships or, have toxins in your environment, If you have unprocessed emotions, you know, those things are in our cells. So it is all of those pieces together. But ultimately coming back to that piece that Abby said of like, how, you know, walking with someone as they come to understand that capacity within themselves is where the real power is at. Because if they, when they find that themselves within themselves, it's way bigger than just telling someone like, eat this, do that. And so I think that that's definitely a big piece of how I work, I think, with clients, and what is really powerful to witness as well.
It's honoring their journey, you know, instead
absolutely.
of just, there's like a set pace or a set way that someone must go to achieve XYZ. It's really, it really is giving them a voice and a place at the table to kind of, you know, introduce aspects of their life that you might not know anything about until you kind of form that connection, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
Vienna, do you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, you know, just to speak on lifestyle medicine as a growing field, you know, among physicians, and particularly in Asheville. I mean, I feel like I know at least 10 or 15 doctors in Asheville that have recently gone, you know, including myself, who've gotten the boards, and including the residency program, really getting lifestyle medicine into the curriculum with the residents. So I know Bounty and Soul, we're all talking together. So it's really great. I love that kind of connected atmosphere of learning, and really, you know, what's the best for the patients in the community. And one of the big topics at lifestyle medicine conferences is motivational interviewing and workshops that we do around that. And it's just always so interesting to see physicians try to do the motivational interviewing, because that is not how we've been trained. So it really is a learned, you know, practice. And it's asking questions. And we're so used to just telling, right? Like, do this, do that. And we know that it's not effective. You know, it doesn't work. And we know even with ourselves, like, you're more likely to do something if you come up with the idea and you come up with a smart goal, and, you know, and so I think just it's about doctors really being interested in taking that next move, and, you know, getting into lifestyle health, and then being plugged into these circles where they're introduced to this whole new way of thinking, which, you know, seems so common sense, but it's really just not practiced. But, you know, I think it's so much more effective. And when I first started kind of practicing that with patients, it was like, oh, they came up with the idea of what they should do, and I didn't tell them. And it's a game changer. You end up at this totally different places at the end of the meeting. So even when you only have 5 minutes, even when you only have 10 minutes, just practicing a little bit of that, and really listening to them and allowing them to come up with that has been pretty transformational, I would say.
Like a great degree of reciprocity there, of learning. You're learning from each other actively. Allie?
Yeah, and I wanted to just speak to how really that idea of, you know, being seen, heard, and valued is at the core of the organization, in, you know, in you know, what we do every day, how we do it. And it really is what I believe is the, you know, the core ingredient to the impact that we are having in the community. And it's really about relationships, and it's about trust. And I know the last webinar we talked a little bit about that, but it really is, you know, seeing each human as, you know, a human, and connecting with them in a way that is, you know, meaningful, and you know, you're reflecting back to them, and they're sharing stories. And at that core level is really where you see the magic, and where you see the light bulbs go off, and when you see the, you know, the connection to, like, you know, their own journey. And, you know, I think that that's just really, really important to name, and you know, because I think that that's for all of us. And I always think that it's really not us learning, but us remembering. That we all have it within us. We all know on a very deep level that food that grows in the earth and grows on the trees and those vibrant colors, we know that that is what we're meant to eat. And we know how, we feel when we are in the presence of a loved one and we're sharing joy. And so some of it is not so much as learning, but as us all remembering. And I think that that's what we kind of share in the experience of Bounty and Soul, even through our education modalities, and is, seeing that in each other and recognizing that we're all here to just remember who we really are. So yeah, just wanted to speak to that.
I love that, Allie. Yeah, I think I personally feel the most in that remembering type of way when I actually have my hands in the dirt. That's just like the first thing that came to mind for me was, gardening and really connecting back to that part of something that, has been instinctual to humans forever. So thank you for bringing that point up. I also, just kind of on that point, what ways are we kind of providing that connection and remembering to people now? We all know every organization has shifted this year. We've had to, given the circumstances. And how are we pivoting? Just for people who might not be familiar with our work, what are we doing differently, and what values are we trying to preserve in that process, and how are we relaying those central Bounty and Soul values now? And for Ben, and how are you preserving those values of what makes your services centered around whole person wellness? How are we all doing that in this new day and age when we can't even see each other in person?
That was a doozy. That was a good question. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I feel like it goes off of what Allie was saying, and it's what I had a feeling Allie was going to speak to it. I'm like, if I don't get to it, Allie's going to speak to it, of that, like, whether we say the word lifestyle medicine or whole person well-being, or whether you're familiar with those terms, this part is as old as humanity. And what Bounty and Soul does, like, I don't know, like, it's not new, it's remembering, like, and that's what's transformational about it, is it's a reclaiming. And I think it'd be silly to not recognize that in this time of a pandemic, a lot of these essential needs have been stripped from people, whether it is community, whether it is ease in going to a grocery store anymore, because you're immunocompromised or you've lost your job, whether it's not feeling safe in X, Y, and Z. There's so many reasons. And what we work really intentionally at Bounty and Soul and at a Bounty and Soul market is to show up in a way that continues to see and value people, whether that's when we're doing like our cooking demo samples still, and there's an opportunity for people to like light up when they just tried a butternut squash hummus or a pumpkin chili and have that moment of connection, still have an opportunity to share food, to share education, to share warmth. For us, that's really, really big, is that Bounty and Soul is a celebration. It's a welcome. It's like, welcome home, welcome back. You are worthy of all of these things. This is you reclaiming. We have a pop-up produce stand at the market that people will drive through, and it's there's still a tablecloth out, and the produce is displayed in really beautiful, abundant baskets, and people have a level of autonomy still to be able to choose and pick and have a conversation about the farmer, about the nutrition, and again, just like make a connection around food. That truly is the magic. Our commitment to our nutrition program of ensuring that the food that people go home with is fresh, that it is nutrient dense, that it's the foods that will reverse and prevent a lot of our top chronic diseases. It's food that is local, grown from our community, which again is like, you know, it's like reclaiming a right in a way. And that's, I could go on about that, but those are some ways that we still weave in those pieces really intentionally and celebrate that people have come out to a market to reclaim and remember in ways that we're able to.
Yes, it's much more than a line. I'll leave it at that. I've been through the market many times myself, so I know and I've experienced that. And I have never put on a veggie costume though. I'll save that for other people, but I love to watch people in the veggie costumes because it's quite hilarious. So if that's your thing, check out Bounty and Soul, become a volunteer. It's amazing. Anybody want to add anything? Okay. Well, we can dive a little bit deeper into, we've been kind of circling and going in and out of many different lines of conversation here. But I kind of wanted to just speak directly about what are our Rooted in Health services looking like now? Like, I want to know what education materials we send out, what the classes look like. What are you still doing health coaching? Are we still referring people to physicians, Ben? Or how's your work changed? And yeah, just kind of focus on what we are doing now within the pandemic. Because Abby really touched on the values that we're preserving, which I think is huge and is felt when you attend the markets. But for those who might not be able to get out to the markets, like what other things are available to them? And I think Valerie, the classes I've tuned into some of the recordings on Facebook, and they've been really valuable to do in my home when it's just me, here by myself a lot of the time. And it gives me a chance to kind of connect with myself and also feel like I'm still part of the class, which I used to do all the time.
Yeah, I think that the yoga classes are definitely one class. So many things have transitioned virtually, as like our webinar tonight. And I'll be the first to admit that in the beginning, it was a little bit of a struggle, right? Like, because we're used to seeing each other's faces and connecting in that way. But it's really just a shift of thinking about how we are connected. And it's been important to stay connected in that way. And I think it's also speaks to, like, you hear the phrase like yoga off the mat a lot, right? Like taking your yoga from, a nice like studio space where everything is organized and the lighting's just right and things like that, to like, I'm teaching a class beside a giant pile of laundry, and it's real. And I think everyone at home is doing that too. Like, your cat or your dog is coming through, and that's where the real work is, right? Of the yoga off the mat, of like, how do you integrate that stillness and that calm and regulation? Like when when everything is going on around you that might feel a little chaotic. So I think that's been one of the gifts of that, is integrating, a home practice, even when it might be like uncomfortable at first or uncertain at first.
Yeah, I love that. It's also, in some ways it has helped, at least me, like try to introduce little bits of yoga or breathing or some type of mindfulness just throughout my day, because my days are not structured anything like what they used to be. And so it's kind of like stepping out of, because of that, I've been able to step out of that mindset and kind of get into a whole new way of looking at things, which I feel very fortunate and privileged to be able to do that, first of all. But yeah, the whole online shift has been a strange transition for, I'm sure, everyone. But it's nice to know that those resources are still available. And I think that's going to be a new wave in our society. So it's good to know that things are there. We can still connect tonight, you know.
Yeah.
Allie, were you gonna, or sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I love what you said about remembering that, you know, it doesn't have to be 30 minutes or an hour for any kind of like movement or breath practice. Abby kind of touched on that earlier. And that's something I talk about with health coaching clients a lot too, that like, if it's just 1 minute or 3 minutes or 5 minutes of pausing and, you know, doing some neck rolls and deep breathing and shoulder rolls, you know, like we can really get so frozen. Yeah, I'll do that. And hold our breath, you know. And so if we just stopped, you know, however many times a day to do that, there's benefit in that. And it's easy to forget.
Yeah, it is. Just like it is to drink water.
Yes, we'll all like
Remember your water. Cheers.
I think I'll speak from the kind of clinician lens. It's the aspect
Yes.
of the Rooted in Health program, that's the physician referral program, is still available. And, you know, I think what we're seeing in the setting of the pandemic and the demands on things is that the needs are increasing. So the needs for what the service, all the services that Bounty and Soul provide are higher. So increased demand for that. I think Allie can certainly speak to that. And you know, I think the more and more folks in my role hear about it, the more and more referrals are going to keep happening because it is a resource that really is not available in the breadth that it is with Bounty and Soul, available in the community and other places.
Thank you. Allie, were you going to chime in? Okay.
Yes, sorry, I'm
Okay.
figuring out Zoom on my phone.
You're doing great.
Yeah, I do just want to speak to the, you know, what we have witnessed over the last 8 months as far as demand and need and want and desire for something like what Bounty and Soul offers. So we, you know, we've seen a 300% increase in the number of people coming for our services, and we have tripled the amount of food that we are also sourcing and distributing. So, you know, you know, and again, you can't, you know, you have to be aware of the kind of the national statistics, like, you know, 50 million people are experiencing food insecurity at this time. And, you know, one of the statistics that's really mind blowing, you know, that speaks to where we're at is, you know, 40% of those 50 million are, you know, people that are experiencing food insecurity for the first time. So, you know, it's real. And I think the other aspect of this is, you know, when we look at this virus, let's just say, and that, you know, people are talking about the immune system, you know, what is important now is healthy food. And reducing your stress levels, and all the things that we provide is, you know, really what we've been doing all along, but, you know, really has kind of risen up to the surface with this, you know, with this pandemic, because, you know, first of all, people deserve and have, you know, or inherently deserve access to fresh, healthy, nutrient dense food. And oftentimes in emergencies or in crisis, you know, the emergency food supply is just, let's get people fed. Let's just get food, you know, into people's bellies. And really, you know, there's nothing, you know, there's that. And then there's this, you know, other perspective of, okay, you know, what is the food that will bring us health? What is the food that people are wanting and desiring? And it's fresh, healthy, you know, fruits and vegetables, you know, food that's alive. And so, you know, and it's so important at this time too, to, you know, have, you know, strong immune systems. So I think that's also something to speak to, that even in a crisis, and especially in this crisis, that we're delivering the services and, fresh, healthy food in a way that is meeting the needs. And it's, they're projecting food insecurity rates to increase by 40%, as we go through 2020 and then into 2021. So I just wanted to speak to that.
I really appreciate you drawing attention to that, because it, like you said, the fresh, healthy foods centered around local as much as possible is something that Bounty and Soul has been doing prior to this pandemic. And it's been really interesting to watch the concerns about how food is a health preventative really rise to the surface through the course of the pandemic. And, I'm here, like we were talking about earlier, Ben, like the change is slow, right? The system change is slow, but I really feel that happening and being pushed forward more so, just because it's like we can't continue to have millions and millions of people newly experiencing food insecurities on a daily basis and not think about the long-term effects of how are we going to create a healthy population, a healthy community, rather than just a quick fix Band-Aid. And I'm not, obviously food is food and people deserve to be fed and have access and dignity to those kinds of foods, but to switch a central focus onto foods that actually, really benefit the body and can be used to further perpetuate, or not even perpetuate, actually reverse disease like we were talking about, and really strengthen the immune systems to the point where maybe our healthcare system wouldn't need to be addressing as many issues if there was a more collective understanding and appreciation of food being a preventative. I know I feel really strongly about that. I feel like people on this panel feel strongly about that as well. And so I'd love to hear any expansion on that, if you feel called. I just feel like that's really highlighted right now during the pandemic, and it's becoming a pivotal time. And I'm really proud to be part of an organization that has been and continues to fight the good fight for that, because I think that's just there's no other way in my opinion. So sorry, that was me, like my heartfelt experience. It is frustrating to know that that isn't a central focus. And I think I really hope that it's starting to be, and I feel that, and I am hopeful. And I think spreading that hope as a big part of the message is also one thing that really draws, a lot of people into the Bounty and Soul family. And I love that as well. Well, no one has entered any questions. So if anyone has any questions, it's kind of an open floor right now. If there's any specific questions about our programs, our services, any particular panel person that you would like to speak with, we'd love to have your questions now.
I also can
And
say some
yeah, go ahead.
speak some to what you were talking about before, Tia. And I think an important point, which Allie was making too, is this, when we get in like this urgency mode around food, is a lot of times that preventative, that medicinal food, the fresh foods can go to the wayside. And something that we really value is community voice and community leading decisions about what our programming looks like, what our education looks like, and what our nutrition programming looks like, the food that we offer. And we survey, we ask what foods people are wanting. And it's an overwhelming response that it's fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, that it's herbs. That's a big misconception, is that people don't want herbs. People won't know what to do with ginger root or Tulsi basil or all of these incredible foods like fresh turmeric root that we share. We share with recipes, we share with education. with a lot of excitement, a lot of dignity and honor, and that people are asking for like whole grains, whole grain bread, like really excited about that. And so we're really committed to like aggressively sourcing those foods, because that's what people want. Those are calls we receive when it's like, we are not feeling well eating a lot of this heavily processed foods. Like, do you all have fresh fruits and vegetables? That's what we hear y'all focus on. And the relief that washes over people to know that when they leave the market, it's going to be with a really beautiful box of fresh, nourishing foods and foods that people might be familiar with, like potatoes and onions and bananas, and an opportunity for people to try foods that might be wildly expensive or inaccessible in a grocery store, like turmeric root, or we had, was it yacon the other day, which is this beautiful root, and people went home with it and got to sample it at the market. And yeah, it's also exposing people to other foods, which is part of the excitement too.
Yeah. I love how that also, once again, connected back to the advocacy. You know, you're not just assuming that people want these foods. It's an active conversation that is revisited over and over, to where the voices are heard and valued and acted on, you know, and that goes really, really far when it comes to building true community resiliency, I think. So thank you for bringing that up. We're actually getting a couple of questions in the chat box. We have one from Dave. Hi, Dave. And he is asking, for those thinking about or intending to make donations to Bounty and Soul, what would be the expected priorities where the money will be used? Maybe Allie, yeah.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So, you know, as we are heading into some uncertain times and, you know, the increasing needs around food insecurity and our commitment to really addressing systemic change in the food and health systems, you know, we are looking, you know, for donations to help us support local farmers with purchasing foods as we head into the winter months and the increase in needs and the food insecurity rates increase. There will be, you know, a need for us to purchase food, and we are committed to investing in our local food system, regional food system. So, you know, donations would be put to that. And also, you know, all the programming that you have listened to and heard about tonight, you know, 85% of the funding goes into programs, direct service, direct programs. So, you know, you know, money that is given is going to help support these transformations that, you know, we keep talking about in people's lives and the experiences they are having, whether it's connecting with the food, connecting with the education and the remembering. Yeah, so, you know, going into an uncertain time over the next couple of months to year, you know, it's really meeting people again where they're at, and a lot of the needs right now are around food and around, you know, again, loneliness is, you know, been attributed to higher mortality rates. So, you know, even coming to a market and having a volunteer run alongside your car in a veggie costume, it's a highlight of people's days. And we hear that, like, that, you know, that they were feeling lonely and isolated, but they came out to a market. So, you know, all these experiences matter in individuals' lives, especially at such an uncertain time. So if you are planning on donating, we thank you greatly. And there are other ways to get involved with the organization. So you can go to our website and there's a button on how to get involved. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Yeah, so as you just heard, the work is definitely not over. we're all facing a lot as a society. We have been this whole year, challenges, and we will continue to do so. But I truly believe that we can overcome them by coming together. And that's how we've gotten through so many different challenges and pivots this year, as Bounty and Soul, and also as individuals. So if you feel inclined to know more about us, we hope that you will check us out online. We're also on all social media, as well as just like send us an email. You know, I have included my email in a link that will go out prior or post the webinar, and feel free to shout out with any questions you might have. We're always looking to connect with new people, always looking to connect and expand our Bounty and Soul family. And we really, really, really appreciate everyone tuning in tonight and helping us kick off Giving Tuesday. And I want to give a really big thanks to all of our panelists who have extremely busy lives, and your voice is so important. Thank you for being here to contribute to this conversation. And we will see you guys on the next one, which stay tuned for the date on that. Thanks again, y'all.
Hey, real quick, Tia, do you want to just
Yeah.
talk about the recording being available?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Yeah. So the recording will be available up on our website tomorrow morning. And feel free to share that with friends and family. If you had a portion that you wanted to watch again, you can scroll through it at your leisure and watch it at your own convenience. And we really hope that if you weren't able to tune in all the way, you'll go back and be able to connect with us in that way.
Could I really quickly?
Yeah,
Sorry, you're closing us so beautifully. I feel like this is the most perfect opportunity to plug that we have launched a Rooted in Health newsletter that comes out weekly, and it's a really great way to stay up with our programming, which is vastly resilient and dynamic to fit the pandemic and the changes, and that we've launched a virtual classroom and have no cost open sessions focused on whole person well-being. I don't know if you could drop my email in the chat, Tia. I'm
Yeah.
navigating it, but if you email me, I can make sure you're on that list. You'll get up-to-date information on our programming and on this virtual classroom that we have that is like a connective space. It's not necessarily a webinar space. It's a space where people can like share and add their stories and have a similar feel to what our in-person classes are like. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That was a perfect, we needed to share that. So thank you for including that. I have included Abby's email in the chat box. And if it is linked into the recording, you can access the chat box as well. So any information that I've included in there tonight, you'll still have access to through the recording. Anybody else want to say anything before we sign off? Thanks again, you guys. I really appreciate it. And hope to see you soon.
Thank you,
Thank you, everybody.
everyone.
Great.
Bye, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.